Manx Radio's Update with Beth Espy.
Well, Mastermind, good evening. Welcome to Update on Manx Radio FM. It's Tuesday, the 10th of December. Here's your look at the main news of the day, packed into 30 minutes. Well, after Storm Dara at the weekend, calls for the public to support local producers are still ongoing, while the Chief Minister says we've weathered worse storms when it comes to boat cancellations that we saw at the weekend before. Also tonight, Tynwald has just this afternoon received a report into progress made by the Housing and Communities Board. So what now? And would you choose Sir Mark Cavendish as your specialist subject on Mastermind? Well, someone did just that last night. All that, plus we'll keep an eye on the weather, the traffic and travel as well. And if you'd like to get in touch, you can text us 166 177. We'll start with a roundup of today's main news headlines with Simon Richardson. Fastamai, Simon.
Fastamai. Manx Telecom says the process of shutting down the copper telecom network is to begin next year, with an expected completion date in 2029. It's an important step towards moving the Isle of Man to full broadband as part of a £50 million investment in the new fibre optic infrastructure. The rollout's already well underway, with 90% of homes and businesses able to access faster internet. The Infrastructure Minister says she believes the Liverpool Ferry Terminal project has been a success. Michelle Haywood was responding to criticism of the annual Department of Infrastructure plan that was put before Tynwald today, which passed with 23 votes to 6. The ferry terminal project was late and over budget and has cost the taxpayer between £70 and £75 million to date. But Dr Haywood says it's proved to be an important asset.
With regards to the Liverpool Ferry Terminal, I think we can define it that it's a success. It's well thought of by its passengers that pass through there. It allows that Liverpool routing now at weekends to use the Manxman, which is a vessel with much higher capacity than the Manannan can manage, and that is proving to be a really, really popular route.
The island's farming community is dealing with drastic damage following Storm Dara. Manx Radio's farming correspondent Kiri Kermode says the weekend's weather has been a disaster for local farmers. Hundreds of trees were brought down by winds reaching in excess of 90 miles per hour. International news, a sex offender who abused nearly 50 children after posing as a teenage boy online has been jailed for 27 years. David John Andrews befriended girls on Snapchat and Instagram before coercing them into sending nude photographs, which he had used to threaten and blackmail his victims. A human rights lawyer who became known for bringing cases accusing British soldiers of mistreating Iraqi civilians has avoided jail for fraud. Phil Shiner was struck off as a solicitor for misconduct and dishonesty after handed a suspended sentence. And Syria's rebel leader says the country will be rebuilt and move towards stability following the toppling of Bashar al-Assad's regime. Abu Muhammad al-Jalani has insisted there'll be no return to panic. That's the news at nearly 4 minutes past 5. There'll be more at 6. In the meantime, keep up to date by following Manx Radio on social media or going to manxradio.com.
Thank you very much indeed, Simon. Now the weather brought to you by Manx Glass and Glazing. So tonight, cloud amounts will be variable and uncertain this evening and tonight, but any prolonged clear spells will see temperatures falling to around 0 degrees. So we have got a yellow weather warning in place for frost and icy patches. That comes into force at 6 this evening until 11 tomorrow morning. And there will be those risk of frost or icy patches developing over higher ground especially. The temperature will be a few degrees higher if the skies are predominantly cloudy though, so it's a case of wait and see really. Tomorrow will be another dry day, but again rather cloudy, temperatures only around 8 Celsius at best. And then Thursday again dry, cloudy, perhaps the risk of some patchy drizzle developing overnight, and again light winds, maximum temperatures 8 or 9. Sunset this evening was at 3:55, sunrise tomorrow morning 8:28.
Manx Glass and Glazing can supply and install single, double and triple glazing. Call 674 573 or visit the showroom on the Snugborough Trading Estate.
SMS Trading have moved to 3 St Paul's Square, Ramsey. For flat pack to fully built, new or second-hand furniture, SMS Trading offer all-island delivery and man-in-a-van service. Call 315151 or find SMS Trading on Facebook.
See the island like you've never seen it before on an incredible chauffeur-driven trike tour. A unique way to make memories that will last a lifetime. Gift vouchers available too. See iomtriketours.com for details and booking.
A great night's sleep got even better with Zed's Bedding Store. From quality Beldorm bed linen and mattress protectors, fleece and woven throws, to luxury duvets from the fine bedding company. Zed's Bedding Ramsey, next to Isle of Man Bank.
If you run a small business or just need more room in the back, Philshaw Vehicles has the perfect van or light commercial for all your needs and can sort out any finance. Based in the Tremode estate, view philshawvehicles.im or call 49 51 49.
You're listening to Update here on Manx Radio. It's just coming up to 5.5 minutes past 5. Well, Tynwald members have agreed to receive a report into the progress made by the Housing and Communities Board. At the same time, though, there was a great deal of scepticism voiced over progress of housing provision and of cost, and where the money would come from for government the target of 1,000 affordable homes over 10 years. And in addition, the new bishop gave a caveat over housing associations. So here in order, Rob Callister, Chris Thomas, Laurie Hooper and Bishop Tricia.
During the House of Keys general election in 2021, affordable housing was one of the most frequently discussed topics on the doorstep. In the foreword of the chair, it notes that there is no quick fix to alleviating the pressures associated with a suitable housing availability and affordability. Yet, having closely followed the board's work over the past 3 years, I find myself frustrated by what is often appears to be a slow approach to change and implementation.
It doesn't talk about empty properties, it doesn't talk about mid-rent scheme, it doesn't talk about all the things that you'll find there's policy decisions being made by the Housing Communities Board previously that exist on the computer screens somewhere in Cabinet Office, which has always been running the Housing and Communities Board. So with that, I find it, obviously it's a nothing real motion.
This debate and this target without any commitment to funding it is just going to prolong the paralysis that we're in.
Yeah.
We're going to have government saying, well, now we've got a target, the next thing we're going to do is have a plan, and then after we've got a plan, we're going to come back and figure out what it's going to cost. Then we're going to decide how we're going to fund how it's going to cost.
I invite our continued reflection on what safeguards there would be needed to protect the voices and the views, particularly of tenants who live in stock that might be transferred to a housing association. I am mindful of this in the light of concerns raised with me by tenants of Grenfell Tower in past meetings with them in a previous life.
That is Bishop Tricia there, just one of the Tynwald members discussing the progress into the report by the Housing and Communities Board, which was received by Tynwald earlier this afternoon. Now, Manx Telecom says the process of shutting down the copper telecom network is to start next year, with an expected completion date of 2029. Now, this is seen as an important step towards moving the Isle of Man to full broadband as part of a £50 million investment in the new fibre optic infrastructure. The rollout actually is already well underway, with over 90% of homes and businesses now able to access faster internet. The copper network will be switched off in phases on a region-by-region basis, and the company says residents and businesses will be notified well in advance. Simon has more details.
The fibre optic rollout represents one of the largest and most significant infrastructure overhauls in the island's history, preparing it for the digital challenges and opportunities to come. However, for people who haven't requested the switch from copper, it means they must ultimately make the change to fibre if they want to continue receiving broadband. Manx Telecom has developed a traffic light system to guide them. Properties categorised as green are those for which fibre is available already and an order can be placed with your provider now. Amber properties are those for which fibre is available, but additional installation steps may be required. Manx Telecom and service providers will assist in facilitating the process. Red properties are those for which fibre is not yet available, but network expansion is underway. Manx Telecom will provide updates on progress and availability. People are encouraged to visit mt.im/network to check their property's status and learn more about the switch to fibre. Although the decommissioning of copper will happen gradually, households and businesses are encouraged to act now to avoid future disruption. Clearly, this leaves a number of unanswered questions, not least the costs involved and the eventual pricing structures when everybody has fibre. You'll be able to hear an interview with Manx Telecom Group Chief Technology Officer Hugo Van Zyl in tomorrow's breakfast programme.
Simon Richardson reporting. It's coming up to 5:10. Castletown Commissioners has hit back at a group of former politicians who are saying reopening Market Square to vehicles is an outdated perspective. Now, the local authority says it respectfully disagrees with the viewpoint being taken by Tony Brown, Richard Ronan and John Kringle. Local Democracy reporter Emma Draper has more.
Mr Brown, Mr Ronan and Mr Kringle say the commissioners aren't concerned if the town's remaining retail businesses close due to a lack of business. They also claim the attitude of the local authority has been deplorable during the operation of the scheme. The group also believes there are no plans for any events until March 2025, when the road closure notice expires, saying there's no logical reason for the decision. However, in a statement, Castletown Commissioners say they have consistently acknowledged the potential need for parking during winter or for special events. The local authority adds these arrangements should be considered on a case-by-case basis, rather than established as a default policy. And it would be willing to revisit the scheme if the Department of Infrastructure changes its position on a flexible closure order. 140 people, including residents and visitors, submitted a petition to the Department of Infrastructure in support of the decision to keep Market Square closed to vehicular traffic. The commissioners say the feedback shows the importance of creating a pedestrian-friendly town centre that prioritises safety, accessibility and long-term sustainability over short-term convenience. The local authority adds it remains committed to balancing the needs of residents, businesses and visitors while fostering a town centre which is functional and welcoming. It also claims the pedestrianisation of Market Square has enhanced the town's charm and appeal, creating opportunities for events, social gatherings and a more relaxed retail environment. The DOI Minister, Michelle Hayward, has been contacted for comment.
Emma Draper reporting, and we will be speaking to the Minister tomorrow. Now, Isle of Man Creamery says it hopes recent food shortages faced by the island in the wake of Storm Dara at the weekend serve as a reminder of the need for consumers to support Manx producers. Those severe winds at the weekend forced the cancellation of many sailings, leading to disruption of the supply of imported stock at supermarkets. Creamery Managing Director Finlay MacLeod has told us the creamery saw a spike in sales in the immediate aftermath of the storm and adds it's vital we have our own viable food and drink industry.
The local businesses supplying things like bread, meat, milk, cheese, all of the staple foods, we're all here on the island 365 days a year. It's so vital that we maintain a viable food industry on the island, apart from the economic benefits and all the employment opportunities that the food sector gives the island. As well as that, just the basic ability to feed the island is absolutely crucial.
Specifically talking about your industry, I mean, milk imports seem to have increased in recent times. How frustrating is this?
It's very frustrating because we are very, very confident that we have literally the best liquid milk on the British Isles, on the Isle of Man. You know, we don't see any advantage for anybody who would actually want to use an imported milk. Our milk comes from herds which are completely traceable. They're all Red Tractor assured. We've got the highest grass-fed accreditation in the British Isles. So all of the cows are out to grass at least 200 days a year. They only come in when the weather is like it was over the weekend, and in times of severe rain and frost, that type of thing. So we've got a natural form of farming on the Isle of Man, which produces a very, very high quality product, which is better than anything else you will find in the British Isles, quite literally.
Did you see a spike in demand over recent days?
We have done, and we have filled a gap that's been left by some of the imported milk products on the island. It's not a massive increase. I think in the last few weeks there has been a lot of talk about what one major brand that's imported onto the island, where the farms supplying that manufacturer are using a new feed additive called Bovaer. I think we are seeing a movement away from imported milk. So I think the message is certainly getting across to consumers.
Isle of Man Creamery Managing Director Finlay MacLeod there. Well, In the Tynwald Chamber this morning, Onken MHK Julie Edge suggested to Alfred Cannon, the Chief Minister, that the key issue for the Manx public is the security of supply and food when there's no access, adding when all your eggs are in one basket, it does cause concern. To which Mr Cannon responded that during significant storms there will be travel disruption.
We've been in far worse situations than we have been this weekend in previous years. In fact, if my memory serves me correctly, some years ago we went 5 days in the days before Christmas without supplies getting to the island, and we managed to survive and have our Christmas turkey. So yes, I'm confident in the food provision.
That was the Chief Minister responding to Miss Edge's comments in Tynwald this morning.
Manx Radio Travel, driven by Quayside Tyres and Service Centre.
Now, we're not aware of any specific issues on the roads. There's nothing on the police page. We do know that some plantations, though, I know they're not technically roads, but you're not able to go into them, particularly South Barrule. We posted the photographs that the Isle of Man government put on their pages earlier, and it's just been decimated in areas. So just be aware you're not allowed in there at the moment. But everything else looks okay. If you spot anything, 166 177, or you can email studio@manxradio.com. Also, can good down at the airport. The steam packet, the Manxman, is due into Douglas at around about 6:45, heading out to Heysham according to the schedule at 7:45. So there might be a little bit of a delay on that. Otherwise, everything looking good. And if you want the full rundown of details, just head over to manxradio.com and click on our traffic and travel hub.
Ask how you can spread the cost interest-free at Quayside.
Well, we are going to stay with storm news now. It's 16 minutes past 5 because the changing climate and updated planning laws mean the island's farmers have been left with drastic damage following Storm Dara. That comes from the Manx Radio's farming correspondent Kiri Kermode, who's discussing the impact of the weekend's weather with Simon Clark on tonight's episode of Countryside.
Yeah, it's just been a disaster. These last few weekends have certainly made up for the driest November we've had on record. These storms are really, really not welcome at this time of year. And the damage that they've done to some of the farms this weekend has been pretty drastic, really. The weather is changing so much, isn't it? You know, storms like this, sort of been unheard of. Not everybody does have the privilege of a shed or two to put livestock in, so some have to live out through the winter time, but they need tending to routinely every single day, and it will come like that. But we are lucky on the countryside, on the Isle of Man, that people do appreciate what the farmers do and do support the agricultural industry. So most of them will take care, but do, especially now, really, really do take care around the corners.
And it's the awkward thing with farm and farm buildings, because the barns are so big, Kiri, aren't they? The sheds need to be a lot bigger than they used to be. So they're a lot more susceptible to wind damage, and they're built in a particular way. Even in the olden days, the sheds were built in a certain way for the prevailing winds, but them 80 mile an hour northwesterly winds that we had at the weekend, they just come in from a different place, and sometimes it's just takes buildings and things off and roof slates off parts that wouldn't normally be affected, isn't it?
This is it. The wind's coming from all angles, and like we say, the weather has changed, and we've just got to be prepared for every eventuality. And I know in the past the old boys had lower sheds and they were more tucked into the countryside, but we've got quite strict planning regulations now, and we have to adhere by these, and sometimes the areas aren't as favourable or as shelters as we'd like to put or construct sheds. But no, we have to make sure maintenance is done. It is expensive to keep on top of it all, but no, the safety first, and good luck to all of the farmers out there.
That's Kiri and Simon speaking on this week's Countryside. You can hear much more next at 5:30. It's 18 minutes past 5 now, and police on the island are urging parents to take responsibility for their children and make sure they know where they are, especially over the coming weeks. This follows an increase in antisocial behaviour from youngsters, predominantly, they think, teenagers. Officers say dealing with incidents is labour intensive and there will be consequences for those involved. Local Democracy reporter Emma Draper has been talking with Sergeant Pam Robinson and PC Louise Kenyag.
So in the last couple of weeks, we've seen a big increase in antisocial behaviour with our youths across the Douglas Noncan community, in particular throwing items at cars, throwing items in shops, just general antisocial behaviour really, mainly happening in Lower Douglas, the Strand Street, in the shops and the fast food areas, in particular McDonald's. So just on the lookout really for any antisocial behaviour that could potentially escalate and turn into criminal offences.
So what are you seeing the most incidents of? Is it throwing things or is it getting a little bit worse?
In particular, the main instance at the moment are the youths throwing things, throwing items at cars, shop windows, going into the entrances of shops and throwing items into there, not just in the shops, at people as well. That's the main sort of antisocial behaviour that we're seeing. Also, I would say probably a bit of criminal damage, graffiti in and around Lower Douglas.
So what do you think are the influences? Is it social media? I know that's a massive thing at the moment. Or is it just peer pressure? Is there anything you're seeing, any trends you're picking up on?
It can be a combination. I mean, we know that kids play a lot of time on their phone and they see all these inspirations from TikTok and it leads them to goad each other into doing things perhaps they shouldn't. Peer pressure is a massive thing, especially the age group we're focusing on now. We go into the schools, we talk to kids about peer pressure, and at their ages, this is where it will start to go wrong. And what's happening at the minute is they're not listening to the message we're putting out there, and they're following people, they're doing it, and they're all getting involved. And that's when your life starts to change a little bit, because there's consequences, and there has to be consequences to actions. So at the minute, we've got a group. It is quite a large group of individuals that have chosen to go against the norms of what they know is right and wrong, and it is going wrong for them. And we cannot emphasise more that this is a time of year where we should all be having fun, enjoying ourselves, but not to the point of committing criminal offences. These young people are hanging around the streets, at shops, in shopping time, when, I don't know, maybe their parents, maybe their grandparents are out shopping buying presents for them, but they don't care. And all they're doing is intimidating people that are simply trying to do something nice.
What should parents or guardians be on the lookout for if they are worried about a child?
So in terms of what we want from the parents is really, it's quite simple for parents to take responsibility of their children, know where their children are, be inquisitive and know their movements, and also send that message to the children that this behaviour is unacceptable. Get it out there, tell them and know what they're about. And I think for us, the message to the parents are that if your children are involved in this, we will be calling you, we will be knocking on your door, and you will be expected to come to police headquarters and spend the time there whilst we deal with the matter.
That's Sergeant Robinson and also PC Kenyock talking to Emma Draper just about how police are tackling an increase of antisocial behaviour. They're urging anyone to report such behaviour. You can contact police headquarters on 631 212. And the main thing is police are saying they don't want to criminalise young people, but they will take the necessary action for the greater good of communities all across the island. And they add, this is not an attack on parenting. They just want parents to know where their children are, who they're with and where they're going and what they're doing. You can find out more about that story at manxradio.com. Now, no one has ever questioned Sir Mark Cavendish's ability, but his career has been the subject of close questioning in one of the most famous of quizzes, Mastermind. Here's John Moss.
The familiar sound of the Mastermind theme, which is called Approaching Menace, but it was an approaching Manx ace that concerned
Jeremy Hicks.
Your occupation?
Retired software engineer.
And your specialist subject?
Sir Mark Cavendish.
As he took his seat for the specialist round of BBC's Mastermind. He'd chosen the island's Wunderkind as his specialist subject.
The professional cyclist nicknamed the Manx Missile, who's considered one of the greatest sprinters of all time.
The questions ranged from
Mark Cavendish's introduction to competitive cycling was when he accompanied his younger brother to the Children's League at the National Sports Centre on the Isle of Man. What's his brother's first name?
Andy.
Yes, to fund the cost of travelling abroad to race, Cavendish took a job at what type of business establishment at the age of 16?
A bank.
To this bit of gossip that may not be that widely known.
At the end of the 2008 Olympic Games in Beijing, Cavendish borrowed a silver medal from which of his teammates to try to get an upgrade on the flight home?
Jason Kenny.
By the end of his specialist round,
Cavendish joined Bahrain McLaren for the 2020 season, after which coach, whom he'd worked with at British Cycling, became their team principal.
Rod Ellingworth.
It was Rod Ellingworth. So, Jeremy, at the end of that round, you had no passes. You've got 8 points.
So no points-winning green jersey for him, no Marc de Triomphe. His two-round total, including a general knowledge round, brought him into second place. During his career, Cav asked the question of dozens of top world cyclists in hundreds of races. In 165 of them, he had all the answers.
John Moss reporting. I'd love to hear John on Mastermind, actually. Turning to more sport now at 24 minutes past 5. Rob Pritchard, what would your specialist Mastermind subject be?
There's a couple of things I'd be quite confident of having a go at, but the first thing that springs to mind is maybe the TV series Blackadder.
Au contraire. Okay.
Indeed.
Indeed. You're going to start off with some more cycling news, though.
Yes, and Sir Mark Cavendish, obviously we've just heard there about someone's knowledge of his life and his career. Well, there's been some news about the 39-year-old coming out in the last day that has some fans either confused or disappointed. Sir Mark Cavendish has not been shortlisted for this year's BBC Sports Personality of the Year Awards. The Manx missile doesn't feature among the 6 contenders for the 2024 accolade announced by the BBC. The nominees are footballer Jude Bellingham, runner Keely Hodgkinson, darts player Luke Littler, cricketer Joe Root, paracyclist Sarah Story, and triathlon competitor Alex Yee. Well, this year Cavendish made cycling history as he claimed an unprecedented 35th Tour de France stage win in early July. In June, he was made a Knight Commander of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire in the 2024 King's Birthday Honours List and received his knighthood at Windsor Castle in October. However, some are wondering, is Cavendish instead a contender for a Lifetime Achievement Award at the event? Well, we'll have to wait and see. The ceremony takes place next Tuesday. Elsewhere, in athletics, Isle of Man long-distance athlete Sarah Webster claimed 3 medals during this year's IAU World 100km Championships in India. Representing Great Britain and Northern Ireland, Webster took individual bronze in the women's race, completing the course in Bangalore in 7 hours, 19 minutes and 18 seconds. There was collective success also as the GB and NI female squad took team silver, beaten only by France and with the USA in third. Taking place within the same race was the World Masters Championship, in which the Western AC competitor Webster took gold for the FV45 category. In martial arts, an Isle of Man-based Taekwondo competitor has managed to get among the medals at this year's World Taekwondo Punse Championships. Nino Ontoy, contesting the male under-30 class at the event in Hong Kong, managed to secure bronze in his category. He was only bested by Kim Sang-woo of South Korea, who claimed gold, and USA's Ryan Rail, who scooped silver. Ontoy was one of 2 athletes to guarantee a bronze, along with Ian Matthew Corton of the Philippines.
Thank you very much indeed, Rob. I was desperately trying to think of a Blackadder question to ask you, but I couldn't think of one. Yeah. You work on that, though, because I reckon there's a
maybe later
quiz.
this week.
Yeah, maybe later. Yeah, just build up to it. What do you reckon?
You're on.
Yeah. Thank you very much indeed for your company. That is just about it for Update this evening. Remember, this will be available shortly as a podcast. Who would want to miss listening to it all over again, eh? You can find all our podcasts actually at manxradio.com. We literally have hundreds of different subjects for you to choose from, so there'll certainly be something that will hopefully appeal to you. Some comedy in there as well. If you enjoy I Am One, H is working on the newest Christmas edition of that, and you're going to absolutely love it. I digress. Coming up next on Manx Radio, it's Countryside with Simon and Kiri, as I mentioned, talking a little bit about how the farmers have endured the storm over the weekend. We heard from one of the farmers yesterday, actually, whose farm suffered a great deal and who lost some historic buildings as well. At 6 p.m, Chris Kinney will be here live with Greatest Hits. John Barker brings you the Folk Show from 9, and Dave Moore will round off your Tuesday with After Hours from 10. Whatever you're doing, have a lovely evening. Do watch out for those icy patches, that weather warning coming into force in the next half hour or so, and we'll be back with you with Update from 5 p.m. tomorrow.